Nick Lortz, a cheerful travel writer, sat at a cafe in Whistler, Canada, enjoying the pleasant morning. He was working on a book about North American mountains. A waiter, mistaking him for a vacationer, struck up a conversation, mentioning a girl across the street watching Nick intently. Nick glanced over and noticed the pretty girl, approximately 25 years old, who seemed troubled. Eventually, she smiled, approached Nick's table, and sat down. Jen, putting her half-open bag on the table, introduced herself to Nick, claiming they had met at a Toronto party, which Nick politely refuted. Despite the untrue story, Nick offered her coffee on the beautiful morning. Their conversation continued, with Nick mentioning he was a travel writer working on a book about famous mountains. While Nick found it interesting, Jen appeared more worried than interested and frequently glanced across the road where a tall, thin, older man with short white hair walked by. When Nick asked if she was waiting for someone, she quickly denied it and changed the topic, inquiring about Nick's upcoming trip to Vancouver for a few days. As Nick mentioned his impending departure to Vancouver, he noticed a letter in the girl's partially open bag mentioning a meetup in Vancouver at the Empress Hotel on Friday afternoon. He found it intriguing that she was heading there as well. Abruptly, she shifted the conversation to movies, mentioning a man called Mr. Hollywood who adored movies and asked if she could call Nick Mr. Hollywood too. Nick agreed and humorously named her Mystery Girl. As a man with white hair entered the cafe and sat nearby, the girl seemed anxious. After quickly finishing her coffee, she stood up to leave. Unexpectedly, she took Nick's face in her hands and kissed him before saying goodbye. The girl quickly departed after bidding Nick goodbye, leaving him puzzled about her sudden kiss and departure. A man with white hair observed Nick closely as he left the cafe and followed him, prompting the girl to smile from her hotel window. Nick, unaware of being trailed, reached his car, while the man with white hair got into a red car and began to follow him. Upon seeing this, the girl packed her things calmly. In Vancouver that evening, Nick couldn't shake off thoughts about the mysterious girl's unexpected actions. He pondered over her motives for joining him, the full story about the party, and the sudden kiss. Nick dismissed dwelling on it, heading for dinner at a restaurant in Gastown, and enjoying his time exploring Vancouver before eventually walking back to his hotel as night fell. Nick encountered a tall woman in a blue dress on a busy street. As they conversed about the spring evening, suddenly, he felt a hand push him into the road. Nick fell in front of a car, but was quickly aided by the woman. He noticed a man with short white hair quickly leaving the scene. Despite shouting after him, the man disappeared into the crowd. Back at the hotel, Nick couldn't shake off the incident, rationalizing it as an accident. However, the image of the girl from the cafe, now identified as Meg Hudson, daughter of a Canadian millionaire, lingered in his mind. He puzzled over her inexplicable behavior and recalled seeing a man with short white hair at the cafe in Whistler, connecting it to the incident on the street. Struggling to sleep, Nick found a magazine revealing Meg's identity, which only deepened his confusion. Unable to shake off the odd encounter and the mysterious connection to Meg and the man with white hair, Nick spent a restless night. The following day, he stayed in his hotel room, trying to focus on his mountain book but couldn't shake off the troubling thoughts. Nick's day took a dangerous turn at Stanley Park. While reading, he heard gunshots, realized someone was targeting him. Fearing for his safety, Nick ran through the woods, panicking as the unseen gunman pursued him. He eventually made it back to his car, finding a threatening letter addressed to Mr. Hollywood. In a state of alarm, Nick headed straight to the police station. After recounting the events to a young officer, Nick sought assurance about his safety, asking what steps the police planned to take. Nick, alarmed and anxious, arrived at the hotel seeking information about the man with white hair. Desperate to locate him, Nick approached the hotel staff. However, the woman at the desk didn't seem particularly interested or helpful in assisting Nick in his search, citing the numerous guests at the hotel without specific details or a name. Despite Nick's plea, the woman's response was unhelpful. Nick, driven by urgency, searched the hotel to find the man with white hair but faced obstacles and couldn't locate him. Determined to find answers, Nick decided to head to Victoria on Vancouver Island, recalling the letter mentioning a meeting at the Empress Hotel. The following day, he set off for Tawasan to catch the ferry to Vancouver Island, frequently checking his surroundings as he drove among the bustling traffic. Nick traveled to Victoria on Vancouver Island, boarding the ferry and scanning the crowd in search of the man with white hair but found no sign of him. Arriving at Swartz Bay, he noticed a red car following him at a distance. Despite his attempts to confirm the driver's identity, he couldn't discern their features. In Victoria, he visited the Empress Hotel, where the receptionist confirmed that Meg Hudson wasn't staying there but had been seen earlier with a man inquiring about the tea room. It seems like a tense situation. The man with short white hair is deeply focused on locating Nick. Meanwhile, Nick has found Meg Hudson at the tea room in the Empress Hotel and is about to approach her. Nick's encounter with Meg Hudson and Craig Winters at the Empress Hotel unraveled a complex web of connections and suspicions. Meg, daughter of a millionaire, seemed to be avoiding her father's interference in her relationship with Craig. She had deliberately drawn attention to Nick, hoping to divert the man with white hair's focus from Craig. The man with white hair, Vickers, appeared to have been tailing Meg, presumably at her father's behest. Nick's realization that Vickers might be a detective hired by Meg's father adds a layer of intrigue. Meg's distress suggests that her father's intentions could be more severe than merely stopping the relationship between her and Craig. Nick's revelation about Vickers's violent actions, pushing him into traffic and attempting to shoot him, raised the stakes. It suggested that Vickers might be more than just a private detective. His actions bordered on dangerous, prompting concerns about potential harm or even murder. Craig's reaction to Vickers's name hinted at a connection or knowledge that he was trying to keep hidden. His concern about being followed to Victoria suggested that he might be aware of Vickers's intentions and the danger he posed. The scene unfolded with tension and a growing sense of danger as each character navigated their secrets and suspicions in a precarious situation. The revelation about Vickers's actions and the potential motives behind them deepened the mystery and danger surrounding Meg, Craig, and Nick. The intense situation escalated further with Vickers's dramatic appearance at the tea room, brandishing a gun and shouting threats. Chaos ensued, resulting in Nick taking evasive action, the table overturning, and a shot fired above his head. In the ensuing commotion, Craig Winters was injured, sustaining a gunshot wound while trying to intervene. The police arrived promptly, subduing Vickers and taking control of the situation. With Vickers in police custody and Craig taken to the hospital, the aftermath unfolded at the police station. Nick and Meg found themselves at the police station, awaiting further details. Detective Edmonds provided updates on Craig's condition, reassuring them that he would recover. Moments later, another detective, Keith, entered the room, accompanied by Howard Hudson, Meg's father. Hudson revealed a distressing past involving Vickers and his deceased daughter, Anna. Vickers had come to discuss Anna's tragic end, her apparent suicide by jumping off a bridge in Boston due to financial exploitation by a man she loved. The implication was that Vickers sought retribution for his daughter's demise and financial ruin. This revelation added a darker layer to the already tense situation. The depth of Vickers's vendetta and the tragic backstory of Anna's demise shed light on the motivations behind Vickers's violent actions and pursuit, intertwining the lives of Nick, Meg, Craig, and Howard H. The situation had taken a poignant turn, revealing the truth behind Craig Winter's deceitful nature. Nick, Meg, and her father Howard Hudson confronted the reality that Winters, previously known as Carl Windsor or Mr. Hollywood, had exploited affluent young women, including Meg, for money under the guise of romantic relationships. Vickers, driven by his daughter Anna's tragic demise, sought retribution and to protect others from Winter's exploitation. However, in a dramatic and desperate attempt to prevent Winters from further harm, Vickers ended up causing chaos and shooting Craig Winters. As revelations unfolded, the police clarified the situation and assured everyone of Vickers' custody. Howard Hudson, deeply angered by Winters' exploitation of his daughter, made it clear that the money Meg had given would not be recovered. Meg, overwhelmed by guilt and emotions, expressed regret to Nick for inadvertently involving him in the situation. Nick, understanding the gravity of the situation, consoled her, believing that it was better to know the truth now than later after a more significant loss, such as a substantial amount of money. Feeling weary of the complexities that unfolded, Nick retreated, taking the evening ferry back to Vancouver. While dining at the ferry restaurant, he encountered a friendly girl, but the encounter seemed to rekindle the reminders of complexities and past experiences, leading him to hastily leave the restaurant to avoid further entanglement. Amidst the chaotic events and revelations, Nick sought solace in distancing himself from the intricate and unsettling circumstances, focusing instead on returning to work and leaving behind the entanglement with millionaires' daughters and dangerous encounters.